Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring some unbelievable story. Stay tuned and let's dive in. I recall the moment everything changed for us. It wasn't a huge dramatic event, just a pleasant morning stroll by the lake, with the first light breaking through the sky. Sophia had asked us to spend more time together since the kids had gone for university. The air was chilly and the aroma of the lake blended with the rustling foliage. I was wondering when we began requiring reminders to reconnect. We went to the pier together, the stillness speaking volumes. I looked at her, observing the lines that had developed over the years. She was still gorgeous. And at that moment, I hoped we hadn't lost anything, yet under the quiet, there was unease, something unresolved. The dock extended ahead, reflecting the uncertainties of our relationship. My gaze shifted to the parking lot, where my 2015 Ford Mustang SS gleamed in the sunshine. It provided consolation while also reminding me of another love I may have ignored. I tightened my grasp on Sophia's palm, attempting to concentrate on the lake's sparkling reflections. The docks were alive with activity, games, food, and entertainment. There were jugglers, stilt walkers, musicians, and, sadly, mimes. I loathe mimes. We had no specific intentions, simply a day to be together and contemplate. For me, we had not lost anything. Our once ferocious passion had calmed into a steady warmth that we could maintain for the long term. Sophia, on the other hand, appeared to believe that we needed to rediscover our early enthusiasm. We weren't as youthful as we had once been, yet my love remained strong. In reality, it had grown deeper. Leaving her now would be significantly more traumatic than years before. Sophia thought our desire had waned, but I believed it was more due to uncertainty clouding our connection. I guided her closer to the water as a mime approached, and I felt a sense of accomplishment when we dodged him. I recommended we take a boat cruise. Sophia chuckled, her voice sounding lighter than it had in a long time. I looked at the boat with mistrust. It seemed hardly seaworthy. The captain had a greasy grin, and the sailor was clumsy enough to tumble on level ground. The boat, dubbed Guppy, seemed antique, like a relic from another time. I wasn't very keen to go on. "Come on, James," Sophia pushed. "I need my big strong husband to protect me." The skipper attempted to comfort me, just a quick tour around Lake Ontario, showing hidden islands and famous shipwrecks. "Will you show me where the SS Bannockburn sank?" I was curious. He stared at me like I was crazy. "No way," he said. "I've been on these waters since I was 12, and that place still gives me chills." Even Sophia appeared surprised by my inquiry. A seaman said, "There are mysterious islands out here, some unmarked, some cursed. They say an old chief guards one. Strong winds keep anyone away." "But what about sinking?" I questioned, still looking at the flimsy boat. "This thing doesn't look very seaworthy." The skipper grinned. "This island is only dangerous in November. In summer, it's perfectly safe, but in a couple of months, it turns into hell, strong winds that can strip the paint off, sudden 47-foot waves coming out of nowhere." "Wow, have you seen one of those?" "She asked you." He looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "If I had, I wouldn't be here talking to you," he joked. Sophia was weirdly drawn to this gruff, fishy-smelling skipper. "Rumor has it," he told me, "that a Native American shaman lives here, in love with the spirit of the Finger Lakes. They say there's purple lightning and eerie screams in the fall. Some even think those conditions caused the Fitzgerald to sink. We won't go to its resting place, but maybe we'll sail close to the island," she said. I nodded and paid for the trip. If I had to spend 3 hours with my adulterous wife, it might at least be fascinating. I looked around at the other passengers, a varied group. 4 young ladies were already chuckling among themselves. 2 were lovely. The third was a tall blonde who was continually checking her lipstick, and the fourth was a curvier lady dressed to conceal her figure but wearing a low-cut shirt. Nearby sat an ordinary guy my age, normal in every sense. If I wasn't myself, I would mistake him for myself. A light-skinned Asian lady sat alone, lovely, her hair drawn back in a tidy bun. Her baggy garments didn't disclose much, but her slim arms indicated that she was fit. Opposite her, 2 geeky men were discussing what seemed like their schoolwork. The skipper and his helper began preparing the boat, and as they untied the lines, 2 more guys aboard. They gave the captain some money and settled near the ladies. Both were large and young, one held himself as if he owned the area, while the other seemed to be his disciple. Sophia was observing them with curiosity. I walked to the opposite side of the boat, and she soon joined me. "Sophia, maybe you should go back," I said. "Why, James?" she inquired. "I'm starting to see your point. Maybe we have grown apart. I thought everything was fine, that we still loved each other, but we are still the same people," she said. "We've made mistakes, but today is about getting back to what matters, remembering why we fell in love, leaving the past behind, and stepping into the future together." She appeared earnest, almost imploring. "If we are different," I said, "maybe we should do what Steve and Luke did." "We don't need that, James," she responded. "Our situation is different. Rachel is miserable, aged beyond her years. We just need to get to know each other again, to understand who we've become." She embraced me, her fingers touching my cheek like she did when we first began dating. I sighed, remembering how long it had been since she had done that. "It's amazing how much small gestures can mean," she told me. "I wanted to talk to you today," she said but maybe it's better to wait. Let's just enjoy ourselves and see if the captain's spooky tour of Lake Ontario can entertain us. Might as well get it over with, I thought. I'm not in the mood for any games. Just tell me if it's bad news. When two people spend so much time together, sometimes they experience life differently, she told me. "So, we've drifted apart." "Just. And you want a divorce? Since the kids are in college, it's a good time, right?" She seemed terrified. "James, why would you think that?" "I want us to be together," she murmured, grabbing my hands. "We've raised two wonderful kids, made our share of mistakes, but you're still the person I want to spend my life with. And I'm not sure I want to be with someone who keeps taking another man's side over mine," I said in anger. "Are you jealous of the captain?" She joked, gripping my fingers even closer. "Sophia, I wanted to tell you that we've raised our kids, the mortgage is under control, and we're not even 47 yet. We're in the clear, but I think we have different visions of what's next. You seem ready to keep saving money and working until you retire at 65. That's what normal people do." She shot me a harsh glance. "That's why normal people grow old without living. Today is the beginning of something new, James. I don't want a divorce. I want us to get to know each other again. I want you to cut back at work, use your vacation time. Let's travel, hike, visit places, and fall in love with each other all over again." Before I could respond, the boat roared to life and the guppy drew away from the wharf. It wasn't a smooth voyage, but the captain and his companion were obviously accustomed to it. As we pulled away from the coast, I attempted to adjust to the boat's motion. "It's not a vehicle," I told myself. Lake Ontario is vast, the biggest freshwater lake by area, so that getting lost would take days before we were located. The skipper spoke about the lake, which covers over 21,000 square miles and touches 4 states in the United States and 1 in Canada. "But don't worry, folks," he remarked with a smile, "I know this lake like my bathroom." The majority of the passengers, including Sophia, chuckled, but I didn't. The captain had a distinct fishy odor, and I doubted he knew his bathroom very well, or maybe the lake was his bathroom, which would explain the scent. For the first hour, the captain's tales enthralled me. I saw his helper, Alex, looking up at the sky regularly. The Guppy's trip was never calm, but after around 80 minutes, the sea became rougher. When we first started, the sun was shining brightly, then clouds began to form. The sky was now blanketed with dark, menacing clouds. Alex had been watching them for a long, obviously worried. "Sorry, folks," the captain remarked. "We're near a mysterious island I warned you about. The waters around it are unpredictable. We can't see it yet, but Lake Ontario is acting up. Maybe I shouldn't have talked about it." At first, I assumed he was exaggerating to hide his terrible seamanship. Any sailor should be aware of the weather, and Alex had spotted the clouds. However, soon as the skipper spoke, lightning struck close to the boat. As heavy rain began to pour, we all raced into the small quarters under deck. The weather worsened and the boat started shaking. I have to acknowledge that the captain and Alex tried their best and possibly kept us from sinking. The little boat trembled, and without the crew's bravery, we may have been lost. Looking at the troubled expression surrounding me, it was evident that we all regretted boarding the Guppy. I overheard a few people express worry about the boat's poor condition and the captain's fishy odor. Alex did not instill much confidence either. Now our lives were in their hands. "Il Sue," one of the ladies said. "Sue who?" inquired the ordinary-looking man. "The captain probably owns this boat and it's all he has," she informed me. "If it sinks, what are you going to get? Maybe a useless wreck. Plus, you'd probably be fined for polluting the lake," according to one of the geeks. The other geek became pale and hurried to the kitchen sink, vomiting violently. He may have been the only one who vomited, but he was not alone in his misery. Everyone yelled and begged for the boat to stop rising and crashing into the waters. "Are we near that island you mentioned?" I inquired, afraid. "No," the captain said. "It's at least half an hour away." Time appeared to lengthen and my emotions were all over the place. Though it seemed like hours, I checked my watch and saw it had only been 7 minutes. The boat was no longer only going up and down, it was swaying in all directions. The boat pointed up, down, and sideways, and we were flung about the cabin as if by an unseen force. Sophia clutched to me, and I attempted to soothe her. Our words were merely scattered syllables that bounced off the walls. "That was a big one," I murmured, attempting to remain cool. Then we dropped to the floor, and I said, "They are keeping us moving forward." I tried to be courageous, mostly for her. The strong man shouted like a child, and I couldn't blame him. He was young and afraid. We all were. The geeks yelled, the lady screamed, and I observed 2 people, one who resembled me and a single lady hanging on tactically, identifying the strongest points. We collided with something hard, resulting in a loud boom. I saw a massive hole in the other wall with water streaming in. "We need to get out of here," I cried. "Everyone on deck." With that hole, we were sinking quickly. The big man pushed past the ladies and raced away. I helped 2 ladies get to their feet and led Sophia out onto the terrace. The skipper had not insisted on life jackets, so I started looking for them. "What now?" the big man questioned, obviously terrified. "I'm trying to find life jackets," I said. "Me too," he said, unlocking cabinets. The captain and Alex were attempting to fix the hole and summon assistance. I pulled out my phone, but there was no signal. The rain had subsided, but the wind still threw us about. We all felt afraid. One of the ladies discovered the life vests. "I found them," she said. The strong man rushed up, shoved her aside, grabbed a jacket, and started giving them out. The boat struck something else, and the force knocked us down. I watched the captain soar up and land heavily on his back. There was a horrible snap, and he became immobile. Sophia sobbed as she clutched to me. The boat has stopped moving. I crept up to the captain and shouted for Alex. I looked for a pulse but found none. I glanced at Alex and shook my head. "The captain is dead, isn't he?" said the strong man. I nodded. "Oh, this is just great," he whimpered. "How are we supposed to get home now?" I glanced around and realized the boat had gone aground. I got out and saw we were on a reasonably wide plot of land that we had discovered during the storm. The others followed me out, and we found ourselves on a large beach. "Alex, is there any way we can fix the hole in the boat?" I asked him. He just gazed at me. "Why are you asking him?" the strong guy said. "Because has the captain now, so has in charge. We need a plan to figure out how to get off this island or signal for help," I told him. "We don't need to do anything like that, Grandpa," he sneered. "Everything is automated. Once the company notices they've lost contact with the boat, they'll come find us. All we have to do is wait. Besides, why trust this guy? He and the captain almost got us killed." Ignoring him, I started going along the beach. I realized I was being followed and turned to find Alex, the big man, and the silent lady behind me. "Exploring the island?" questioned the regular person, who quickly caught up. I nodded. "We need to know what's here in case rescue doesn't come. There wasn't supposed to be a storm this afternoon, it was forecast for tonight and tomorrow." "Henry Ignatowski," he said, extending his hand. "Andrew Sinclair," I responded, shaking it. Henry, we can cover more ground if we split up, he told me. Alex and I will go east and you and this lady can go west. Is your watch still working? Yes, he said. Let's meet back on the beach in an hour. We probably have about 3 to 4 hours until sunset and the storm could start by then, if not sooner. We're looking for a cave or any natural formation to use as quick shelter. He nodded as we parted ways. As Alex and I strolled, he appeared to recover from his astonishment. How do you know this is east? He inquired. The sun sets in the west, I said. He nodded. Learned that from a survival course? No, I said. I watched a lot of westerns as a kid. We discovered several rock formations that may work, but they need certain ingredients to make them functional. There were several slender yet robust trees, as well as larger trees from which we could cut long branches. Talking with Alex, I had a decent feel of what supplies were aboard the boat. After an hour, I realized what we needed to do to weather the storm. I dispatched Alex back to the boat with a list of objects to acquire, and I went to the shore to report our discoveries. If Henry hadn't located a better place, we'd stick with the one we had. We had little time and needed to act rapidly. I was just gone for an hour, and it's possible that I took that route by chance. This portion of the region was a little more private. Later, I found that they had settled on a safety in numbers strategy, teaming up whenever someone wanted to use the restroom. Unfortunately, or maybe purposely, there were no other ladies available when Sophia wanted to go, so she accompanied him. I overheard them conversing as I approached. I wasn't attempting to remain silent until I recognized her voice. But, aren't you married? He inquired. It's no secret, she said. I've been exploring my options for a couple of years. A friend of mine got caught, so I decided to stop. But maybe now isn't the time to give it up. Then I heard a familiar sound, his moan. I understood what was going on, but witnessing it was different. I came closer and saw Sophia with him. She stood up, almost as if she had heard me, but she was only surveying the beach to see if anybody was around. Why did you stop? He inquired. We're just getting started, she said, dropping her underpants and leaning forward. After a few minutes, he started moaning. Remember, those younger girls might be prettier, she said, but they won't do what I will. Since you're in charge now, I expect you to look out for me. If you do, he'll give you whatever you want. What about your husband? He said. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, she told me. Just keep him busy. Send him on some errand to feel important. I expected to be surprised, but when she revealed cheating on me for years, everything made sense. I understood why she suddenly wanted to rekindle our relationship. She had cheated on Luke, and when Luke was discovered, she dreaded the same outcome. That's why she seemed to want to renew our relationship. Everything was done for her own protection. What stung the most was how calculating she was, never considering me for a minute. Being realistic, I set it away. The storm was still approaching. I went away from the trees and approached the shore from the other side. I noticed Henry and the lady we had met in the middle. Henry shakes his head. We found a small cave, he said, but it's not big enough for all of us. The lady grabbed his sleeve. Oh, yeah. We also found some trees with ripe berries. There were a lot of squirrels, too. Okay, I said. Alex and I found a natural rock shelter. It should work for tonight. We'll need to use tarps and rope from the boat to make it windproof. We should start soon. No need for that, said a voice behind me. While you were off exploring, we held an election. This is still America, and I'm in charge now. The two geeks, the muscular guy's companion, and 4 other ladies all nodded in agreement. So we didn't get to vote? Henry inquired. Wouldn't have mattered, said the muscular man. There were 9 of us here and only 4 of you. I assumed if no help arrived tonight, we could simply sleep on the boat. No need to waste energy building a shelter when we had the boat. Henry and I shrugged and walked toward the location I had discovered earlier. Hey! The muscular man exclaimed. Where are you going? There's a storm coming, I remarked. I said we don't have time to waste on you, I quipped. But I'm in charge, he said. We didn't vote for you, Henry said. You're not leading us, I explained. What about your wife? The man said. Aren't you going to try to convince her to come or fight for her? You've already said it, I responded. She's with you. Sophia shuddered as I stared her directly in the eyes. I only fight for causes that are worthwhile. But Sophia said, Henry, the quiet woman, and I headed away from the beach. As we walked away, a buxom woman joined us. Grace, where are you going? One of the other ladies said. Listen, Peggy, Grace continued, I know how the story ends. 4 guys, 5 women, and I'm the odd one out, she said. I'd rather take my chances with them. They have a plan and a reason for it. When we arrived at the location I had identified earlier, we introduced ourselves. Grace was the curvaceous lady. Olivia was the one who remained silent. Olivia did not say much since she did not like explaining her accent. She described herself as a crossbreed, her father was half black and half Hispanic, and her mother was Irish. Olivia grew raised in London. She was a librarian and was proud of it. Henry, like me, was an engineer. He was a mechanic, and I worked in manufacturing. I detailed my plan for fortifying our location, which was at the bottom of a steep slope with a V-shaped notch that gave some protection. My aim was to construct a linter against the rock wall and integrate it into the slope. There were enormous boulders and fallen trees nearby to help strengthen it. We could use the waterproof top to cover it after we had settled up, particularly to block the wind. My first worry was keeping the wind out. Alex came shortly after, and I updated him. The tarps were bigger and thicker than I anticipated, which was excellent. I sent him back for more materials while Henry began building. Grace and I went hunting for branches to use for the walls, while Olivia went back to gather berries and other edibles. When Olivia returned with plenty of berries, I invited her over, and she grinned as she approached. I handed her the fishing rod. What should I use for bait? She inquired in her delicate accent. What? I said, trying not to hear. She smiled as she repeated her query. I still pretended not to hear. Grace walked over. Henry says we have enough posts for 2 layers of walls, she informed us. Is this because of my skin color? Olivia inquired. What? She asked. I asked you the same question 3 times and you didn't hear me, she added, her expression wounded. Olivia, that is silly, I answered. And I'm sorry you think I'm silly. She said, I want you to know I couldn't help laughing. Olivia, I never meant you were silly. I said I meant I was the silly one. She settled back and studied me. I doubt you're silly, she remarked. And since we're following your plan, if I'm wrong, we're all in trouble. Olivia, I said. I kept asking you to repeat yourself because I love hearing you speak. Your accent, your voice, everything. It's just magical. I could listen to you all day. We both flushed and turned aside. Olivia, I said as she grabbed the fishing rod. Check the muddy spots for worms and try using them or some berries as bait. She reappeared a few minutes later, pushing me toward a puddle. Attach this to my hook, she said, pointing at a big worm. Henry started setting up, pushing large stakes into the mountainside. The tilt made them almost unnoticeable from a distance. Henry carefully chose the next stage, which was to throw a top over them and add another layer of posts to keep them safe from heavy winds. I requested that Alex install a huge flat metal disc he had taken from the boat in the middle of the shelter. I placed crumpled paper, wood chips, and dried wood above it, along with some metal skewers, to create a heat source and a burner. On his previous vacation, Alex carried 6 bottles of water and 3 cans of soda. Clouds began to cover the sky. We all worked together to position a huge boulder and a split tree trunk in front of the wall. We used smaller tarp pieces to construct blankets and spread out life jackets to use as beds. Olivia arrived with 3 gorgeous fish as a crowning touch. Look what I caught, she said happily. I'll take care of it, Henry said. I'll clean them, Alex said, assisting with the first one. Olivia said, smiling, I noticed the other 2 fish were still attached to the rod. Olivia approached me after Henry stole them from her. I think he'll stick to berries, she remarked, not a big lover of sushi. Well, I'm not a sushi fan, I said, gesturing to my improvised burner. How about this? What is that? She inquired, wondering. This is where we're cooking your fish, I remarked with a grin. Smart man, she said, smiling. Maybe you'll try some after all. Olivia, we don't know how long we'll be here. We need more than just berries and greens to stay strong. Anytime we have protein, I need you to eat it, fish, squirrel, whatever we find, even if it doesn't taste great, okay? She nodded. Rob, she said, glancing at me. I was just wondering. She grinned when I glanced at her. What fried crap might actually taste like? We both broke out laughing, capturing everyone's attention. Before we could explain, the first showers fell. We raced inside our improvised shelter. We left the damper behind the rocks open and brought the log closer. After a few attempts, I was able to ignite the fire using my lighter. The tiny fire and open damper provided light. I placed Olivia's cleaned fish on a spit over the fire and turned them gently. The aroma of cooked fish was appealing. While we waited for the fish to cook, we took turns talking about ourselves. Grace had several questions. I feel okay, she responded, taking stock of the situation. I feel pretty good. But why didn't we wait out the storm on the boat with everyone else? Because the boat is perched precariously on the same rocks that damaged its hull, I gave an explanation. It's unstable. When the winds pick up and the tide comes in, the boat could easily be swept off the rocks. You mean they could leave without us? She inquired. Or go straight to the bottom of the lake, I told you. The lake's over 1,000 feet deep in some spots. Alex said, what about your wife? I'm pretty sure she can swim, I replied. Silence descended, broken only by the crackling fire as everyone turned aside. Listen, guys, I started. Today was supposed to be about Sophia and me reconnecting. I didn't think we needed it. It was her idea. But a few hours ago, I caught her doing something unforgivable. If she wanted to stay married to me, I also overheard her talking about cheating on me for years. So whether we leave this island or stay forever, our marriage is over. It wasn't love that made her want to get closer, it was fear of getting caught. Honestly, I'm glad I found out now. I can move on and find someone better before it's too late. So forgive me, bad trash is best taken out, I said. Let's eat. We ate fish and berries, drank water and soda, and discussed many topics, including our plans for the next day. We eventually fell asleep to the sound of wind and rain on the awning. Fortunately, our shelter kept us warm and dry. The following morning, we all woke up to do the duties we had planned the night before. Grace was cleaning and arranging the shed, Olivia was fishing, and Henry was looking for small game and berries. Alex and I were going to work on making a signal visible to passing ships. Grace also wanted to see her buddies. Alex, Henry, and I brainstormed and came up with two useful signaling options. One idea was to create a fire that could be started instantaneously, resulting in smoke visible from a distance at night. While the smoke would be more visible during the day, we also decided to collect a huge mirror from the boat's bathroom, which would be an effective means to communicate during the day without the need of fire or electricity. We chose to start with the mirror. As we reached the shore, we assumed they were all still on the boat, but then we saw them gathered around a tree, trying to stay warm. Although the sun would ultimately dry them off, they seemed chilly and uncomfortable. Then we realized the boat was gone. It had sank. They saw us when we realized the boat was gone. Sophia and one of the young ladies stumbled towards us, followed by one of the botanists. They all looked awful. Why didn't you tell us the boat would sink? The botanist inquired. You knew, didn't you? Sophia said, how did you guys stay dry? I ignored her. James, we need to talk, honey, she said. I feel like you're angry, she said. Okay, I messed up again. I didn't take your side. I was wrong. Alex, let's swim out and see how deep the boat is, I told him. We can dry our clothes by the fire afterward. Hopefully, they'll have something for us to eat when we get back. When I stated this, everyone turned swiftly to face us. Where are you getting your food? Said the strong man, trembling. You took all the food from the boat, didn't you? Of course not, Alex said. There's plenty of food on the island. You just need to know where to look and work together. Show us, Mr. P, the big man said. We have work to do, I said. If you're part of the group now, you need to get up and figure things out. By the way, the forecast said it might rain today. What exactly do you mean by working together? Said one of the botanists. We all have different tasks, I stated. Some are cleaning our area, others are gathering food, and some of us are working on signaling ships. You took all the capable people, the muscular man protested. That's unfair. You left me with useless women and nerds. I thought nerds were smart, but all these guys know are comics and Lord of the Rings. It's unfair. We should all regroup. I'll talk to our group at lunch and get their opinion, I told them. Why don't you just tell them? He said. Because we don't have a leader, I said. We discuss ideas and act on what we think will work. Everyone has a say. Why are you dry? The blonde said, her makeup smudged and her countenance unhappy. Our shelter is dry and protected from the wind, Alex told me. And the fire kept us warm. Where did you find shelter? The strong man said. We didn't find it, Alex said. We built it. Rob came up with the design. Henry Ignatowski constructed it, and Grace made it comfortable. Looks like we're with the wrong group, the blonde mumbled. Alex and I dived into the sea and swam to the island's rocky edge. The boat was about 8 feet underwater. I took a deep breath and plunged but was unable to reach the mirror. Alex performed better, he emerged with a tiny grill. Not that I didn't like your cooking last night, he told me, but this will make things easy. As we walked away, another throng formed behind us. I turned to speak to them. Less than 24 hours ago, you all made some bad choices, I told you. You're lucky you didn't drown when the boat sank. I'll talk to my group about reuniting and we'll let you know. Sophia was still following me. Where are you going? I inquired. With you, she said. We're still married, remember? With the coldest voice I could, I replied, yesterday, while you were with that guy, you said, what I don't know won't hurt me. You were wrong, Anna. Now I know, and am ready to leave you behind. When we leave this island, we're getting a divorce. We're done. She remained there stunned as Alex and I went away. During the following 3 days, the two groups had little touch. My group prospered. We utilized lengthy portions of the boat's piping as improvised snorkels to rescue the mirror and other stuff. Grace was the sole point of communication between the two groups since she visited her pals every day. She returned with some unsettling tales. The other group is near starvation, she said. Liam, the muscular guy, has become a tyrant, ruling by fear. The women, except Sophia, want to leave but are scared of him. She stared at me. Sophia is depressed, she believes you have abandoned her. I have, I said. What else am I supposed to do? How would you feel if you had spent 18 years loving and supporting someone, only to find out they've been cheating for years? I wish we could start the divorce here and now. Don't you want to talk to her? Grace inquired. Why does it matter? I inquired. She wasn't forced or blackmailed. Even if something like that happened, she could have come to me for help. The fact she did it more than once means I don't want to stay married to her. Not all men are cheaters and not all women are faithful. I'm just unlucky, but I'm not going to become bitter. I'll find someone who sees things the way I do. That morning, I got up early and went to inspect the pole we had erected on the cliff for the enormous mirror. The other group approximately divided the island. They had the beach, we had the bluff. It worked out since the majority of the fish were near the cliff rather than the shore. As I approached the cliff, I saw Olivia perched on the edge, fishing in just her underwear, a lace bra and panties. She was thin yet curvaceous, and I pondered why someone with such form dressed such baggy clothes. Except for Alex, Grace, and Henry, we had kind of split up during the last several days. They spent a lot of time together, and Olivia appeared to want my presence. We sat together at meals and she would cuddle with me at night when it was chilly, but that was the extent of our relationship. I was not sure I could say the same of Grace and Henry. Despite our age gap, I was ready to approach Olivia when I saw them, Liam, his buddy, and two botanists emerging from the jungle. They headed right toward Olivia. Liam grabbed her arm and attempted to pull her away. I rushed over, pushing Liam aside and stepping between them. "What are you doing here, old man?" Liam scoffed. "This isn't your side of the island, I told you." "We have an unspoken agreement," I said. "Because we don't agree with each other." Sophia and the young ladies arrived from one side, while Grace, Henry, and Alex came from the other. "This is the land Alex, Henry, and I chose," I said, while you sat on your steroid-pumped bum saying we were wasting time. "This land is ours. It's Grace and Olivia's. You belong on the other side." "Is this Gilligan's Island?" one of the ladies said cynically. "I'm tired of all this," Liam yelled. "I'm tired of starving, thirsty, being sunbaked all day, and freezing at night." I was wrong. I picked the wrong people. I thought with Ryan and me being the strongest and the nerds being the smartest, we'd have it all. Turns out my nerds are useless. They have PhDs, but who needs theoretical physics on a deserted island? I thought having all the women would be an advantage, but somehow you kept the prettiest one for yourself. "We need to share resources fairly," he told us. "You and the other old man are clearly the brains and your friend's a hunter. If I take her, he'll have food. Since you want her back, you'll build me a shelter or give me yours, right?" "No," I said. "That's nonsense." He spat. "Grace talks to her friends every day, and while they talk, I listen. They all want to join you. I've heard them complain about us forcing them to sleep with us and having no food. Grace snuck them bits of squirrel and fish and talked about all of you. I know Grace is with the other old guy, and you and the English girl haven't done anything, but you like each other. So decide if you're building me a shelter or giving me yours." "No," I repeated. "So you're not even going to try to get her back?" questioned the man. "I won't have to," I said. "You won't take her away." Before I could respond, a massive fist struck me in the mouth, knocking me back. "Guess you weren't smart enough to see that coming," Liam murmured. "You might be smart, but it's time someone showed you your place." As I rose up, he struck me again in the eye. "Stop," a woman's voice said. "Don't hit him again," she said. "He'll go with you. He'll fish, pick berries, whatever you want. Just leave them alone." "Smart girl," Liam said, looming over me. "You're the only one here who stands up to me." I swung awkwardly at him and purposefully missed. "We don't need to do this," he said. "But why are you willing to fight for her when you didn't fight for your wife?" said the soldier. "Easy," I said, still stunned. "Olivia is worth it." I approached him, jerking my fist back again. He grinned. I swung clumsily and he leaned away. At that point, I kicked him as hard as I could in the crotch. His scream could be heard across Lake Ontario when he bent down. When I brought my knee up into his face, he dropped. His companion seemed shocked. "You were faking it," he said. "You weren't that hurt." "It's called cheating," I said, laughing. "Has taller, heavier, has a longer reach, and is 18 years younger. Is that a fair fight?" He was desperate. "Ryan said we don't know how to survive here," he said. Liam's always been hot-tempered and thought he should lead on the boat. "You had all the ideas during the storm." He screamed like a kid, and it embarrassed him when you left to explore. He turned it into a popularity contest. "You should have played along instead of abandoning us. I think you were more mad at your wife than anything else." Liam grumbled while remaining on the ground. "And don't blame Liam for your wife," Ryan said. "She offered herself and he took her. She's not even his type. Too old for us. It was just for fun." "Screw you, Ryan," laughed the brunette. "You have already done so several times," Ryan remarked. "And it wasn't great." Without makeup, the blonde seemed less appealing, and she stood there grumbling. Liam started to stir. Ryan said, "Dude, are you okay?" "My gear, it's throbbing," Liam complained pitifully. Olivia gently approached me, and Ryan and the others couldn't keep their gaze away from her. She let her hair down and pulled it into a long ponytail like a black waterfall. Her chest pushed against her bra, and her contours shifted with each stride. Liam attempted to rise, yelled in agony, and almost passed out again. "What's wrong now?" Ryan inquired. My hand, Liam moaned. It's dislocated, I said, holding his shoulder to assist him. He flinched away. Don't touch me, he demanded. Listen, I said forcefully. Your shoulder is dislocated. The longer it stays that way, the worse it'll get. Lie down, shut up, and I'll try to fix it. I grabbed his hand, positioned both of my legs on his side, and pulled hard. He yelled, then exhaled in relief. Oh damn, that feels so good, he said. You need to make an armband, I told you. It'll be sore for a week, and even after the pain subsides, it'll be weaker for a while. You should head back to your side of the island and rest. Ryan helped him up, and they all went, despite the complaining. I anticipated they will soon have a new leader. Olivia took a peek at my face and then fled away. Just let her go, Grace murmured from behind me. What did I do wrong? I inquired. Nothing, Grace said. She's even more obsessed with you now. You got beaten up to protect her. Do you know what that does to a woman? When did she start really liking me? I questioned her. From the first night you told her how much you loved her voice, she informed me. Rob, do you know what women hear all the time? We hear, look at that ass, or God, I wish I could grab those boobs. You didn't hear what Ryan said about Emily, did you? Do you know how hurt she is right now? Believe me, to Olivia, you can do no wrong. I proceeded to work on the mirror, modifying it to direct the beam over the cliff and into the lake. I was just beginning to realize that we had missed breakfast when I heard timid footsteps behind me. I turned to face Olivia. She was holding 2 square boards that Grace had prepared for plates. There were greens and some pork chopped into bits. We got 3 or 4 pieces apiece, along with cups of berry juice. She gazed at me briefly before averting her gaze. What did I do now? I inquired. Your eye, she said. And your lip. They'll heal, I said. But they shouldn't, she said. I could catch fish for him for a few days. Maybe he could learn to fish for himself. Maybe, I said. I didn't want to be without you for a few days. Her eyes widened and she attempted to suppress her grin. The greens are different, she said. I found them underwater near where I fish. She asked Alex to dive in and cut some. It's like kale, but the taste is a bit different. I recognized she was trying to shift the topic. What kind of meat is this? I inquired. Try it, she said, smiling. I took a bite. It wasn't squirrel. Less fatty. More like chicken, I remarked, despite knowing there were no chickens on the island. Is this a seagull? I inquired, munching. She shakes her head. It's not pigeon, is it? I inquired, taking another mouthful. Alex caught it, she said. I spit it out and drank a big swallow of berry juice. Rob, do you know when I realized you cared about me? She lamented. I shake my head. It was when you told me to eat every kind of protein available, even if it tasted terrible. You didn't say that to anyone else. It mattered to you that I stayed healthy. So now, I want you to eat your snake for me. It's not as tasty as fish, but it's protein. Better than nothing. Something changed in our relationship after that. We never spoke about it or made it official, but we became a couple. We remained together from then on. Because we couldn't keep any additional food, we started distributing it to the other group. When we served them a pail of fried fish and lettuce, they ate it by the fistful. Unlike us, they had no concept of sharing or collaboration. Each individual just stole as much as they could and went away. A few days later, Olivia and I found ourselves sitting on a cliff. She was fishing and I was watching her from my undies. Every day, Olivia cleaned her clothing in cold, clean water and dried them in the early light. While her garments were drying, she fished in her underpants. When her clothes were finished, she typically had enough fish for the day. When she put her clothes back on, she rinsed her underpants. We hadn't had much intimacy since we started dating, but we began kissing often. That morning, while she sat fishing and smiled at me, I knew we'd lay on the soft grass and kiss for hours. As I glanced at her, she casually slipped her hand up her side, resting her long fingers on her bra. She carefully removed the lace cups, revealing her lovely, light tan bosom. Suddenly, it seemed like teleportation was possible. One moment I was sitting on the grass 10 feet away, and the next I was on her lap, touching her with no recollection of moving in between. She suddenly sighed. "Rob, I'm not going to stop," she said. "I want you so much." "Not even for that boat," she said. "What boat?" I inquired, rising up and gazing out across the sea. She was right, there was a little boat approaching us. I rushed to the mirror and directed the beam toward it. At first, it seemed to be passing by, but then it paused and I began leaping and signaling. The boat turned towards us. Alex heard our screaming and dashed over. As the boat approached, we saw it was a little speedboat, no more than 10 feet long, with 3 individuals already on board. When IG and Grace heard us yelling, they came over. Olivia failed to cover herself in her enthusiasm, and IG's eyes almost burst out. We determined that just one of us could go back. It was shortly determined that it would be Alex. They wanted me to go, but I refused. Alex could handle speaking with the authorities. The boat's registration, insurance, and other information were critical. They also reported our position to the Coast Guard, but mobile coverage was not available in the region. "Why didn't you go?" Olivia said as we saw Alex sail away and go. "Just. That'll never happen," I said. "Good answer," she responded. Olivia and I moved to the other side of the island once Grace and IG resumed their activities. As soon as we arrived, everyone crowded around. Before we began conversing, I heard a tiny sigh. I glanced up to see Sophia watching Olivia and me holding hands. "Where's the food?" asked one of botanists inquired. "Everything you need will be here soon," I promised. "We've been rescued." "What? How?" Ryan inquired. "Mirror," I said. Olivia and I were on the cliff fishing when she saw the boat. I used the mirror to signal them. The boat was too small for more than one person, so we sent Alex. "They'll send a rescue boat." Everyone became thrilled, discussing the first things they wanted to do when they returned. Someone asked whether Olivia usually wore underpants, while another worried what we were doing alone on the cliff that morning. "Who cares?" someone else asked. "This is the end. We're going home." A little more than 2 hours later, I sat on the railing of the Finger Lakes rescue boat, watching the island gradually diminish. I could still see where we had set up camp and worried what would happen to our rudimentary shelter. "$1 for your thoughts," said a hushed voice near me. Her clear British accent adds to the jumbled line's attractiveness. "My thoughts are worth at least 5, I said. "Can I guess them first?" she inquired. "That's a lot of money, especially for a poor librarian." "Okay," I responded. I talked to Grace. She went back to her friends. She and IG talked it over. He explained to her kindly that what they had would always be special, but it was just an island fling, something that wouldn't work in real life. She agreed. Said he was too old for her, and they both decided to return to their lives. The island was just an episode. She looked at me and said, "Is that what you were thinking? Were you trying to find a gentle way to tell me the same thing?" "Something like that," I said. I saw her fight to maintain a cool look. "Actually, I was just thinking that after our wedding, we could charter a boat and return here for our honeymoon. We can't determine whether to invite certain pals. And, of course, if we have children, we'll bring them here eventually. My other children may want to view it as well, depending on whose side they are on after the divorce." The next thing I knew, she was approaching me so quickly that I almost fell over the railing. Our lips briefly brushed somewhere in the tangle of arms and legs before someone cleared their throat. I turned to see Sophia standing behind me. "Olivia, can I talk to Rob for a moment?" she inquired. Olivia nodded. "He'll go try to consult poor Grace," she replied. "Is she on the list?" I inquired. "Definitely," Olivia said, and an idea began to shape in my head. "Rob," Sophia began, her voice cracking, "what's going on? You haven't said more than 10 words to me since you let me know you knew what I did. We need to talk about this." I glanced at her and said, "I spoke with Grace on the island and she told me something that didn't make sense. I think you might have the wrong idea about what happened here, Sophia, I told you. Sophia, as soon as the ship docks, I'm filing for divorce. If what you have to say will save me time, let's do it now. It means we won't have to waste time later, I told you. Okay, Rob, she said, her voice cracking. I don't know how you found out, but yes, I cheated before we got to the island. But I stopped on my own and decided to dedicate myself to making you happy. That's why we got on that damn boat in the first place, so we could fall in love again. I quit, Rob. I'd never do it again. That should count for something. It says something, I answered. She smiled faintly. It says nothing. 0 is something, mathematically. What else did you want to say? I inquired. Well, you know Liam forced us all to sleep with him and the others, she said, feeling despondent. I knew she was lying the moment she said it. Do you think I found out about you and Liam? I requested an answer. Grace told you, right? She paused. No, Anna, you told me yourself, I informed you. Before you sided with Liam against me, just like you did with the captain. I was in the bushes. I saw you with him, heard everything. It's funny, a guy I can't stand cared more about our marriage than you did. He even asked, what about your husband, Rob? I was scared, she whimpered. I wanted the best chance of survival. Well, you picked the wrong side, I told you. And I paid for it. Sophia glanced at me with bewilderment. They treated us like trash, she said. Olivia only had to be with you. She probably even liked it. We were passed around without our consent, and those nerds were sadists. Olivia and I haven't had sex yet, I said. I think we'll wait until after the wedding. You can't be serious, she said. Are you Rob, Steve, and Luke are nothing like us, she said, almost imploring. They haven't been married that long, and they don't have 2 kids to explain it to. Okay, I had physical relationships with some guys while I was with Luke. It was just for fun. It was only sex, no permanent partners, just casual, nameless sex. And I always came home to you. I never embarrassed you or did anything with our friends. So what? She replied with a laugh. So it's as much your fault as it is mine, she told me. I hesitated for a bit. I waited 18 years while you went to work every day. I was bored. I felt less than human, she told me. Tell that to Oprah or Dr. Phil, I snapped. If you want to change your job, all you had to do was tell me. You could change jobs at any time. I worked hard every day to provide you with the things you did. Instead, you're telling me all these excuses, but you couldn't just say you were bored, I told you. She stared at me as if she'd never considered it. Well, what you're doing is not the same as what I did, she said fiercely. I had a few meaningless affairs with guys I barely remember. You went out and found someone to replace me. I laughed. Are you laughing because you don't see your relationship with Olivia as serious? She inquired. How much time do you need with her before your wounded ego lets us get back together? Olivia could never replace you, I said, smiling. She smiled faintly. Olivia is younger, smarter, prettier, and in better shape than you ever were. Most importantly, she believed in me before we even met. She listened to me and Liam and chose my side when my own wife wouldn't. As for time, I went on. I want to spend the rest of my life with her. What will we tell our friends? What will we tell our children? She said, almost imploring. Tell them whatever you want, I answered in response. I'll tell them the truth. When we arrived at the port, things started to move quickly. I had previously informed Sophia that I intended to leave the home, so she needed to find someplace else. She accepted since she couldn't pay the mortgage without a job that provided hefty child support. She chose to move in with her parents and scheduled to pick up her belongings on Saturday. I got in my Camaro and headed home. I phoned the same divorce lawyer that Steve had hired. Steve ended up paying Luke very little, and I expected a similar conclusion. I had another ace up my sleeve, or two. While I was splitting bank accounts and deactivating all of Sophia's credit cards, she took a different approach. She phoned our children and told them a lot of falsehoods. She hired her own lawyer and contested every settlement offer I made. We proceeded through consultations and our therapist was astounded by Sophia's actions. The discussions failed but lasted 8 weeks. In a last-ditch effort to avoid court, we attempted arbitration. That is when I fully realized Sophia's objectives. She was attempting to extract as much money as possible from the divorce, just as Luke had done with Steve. If she couldn't salvage her marriage, she wanted enough money to continue doing whatever she pleased. The judge did not grant her nearly as much as she had hoped for, and what she did get was just for 2 years. After a few months of wild living, Luke found that being continuously accessible was not as enjoyable as she had anticipated. She ended up alone and destitute. Sophia saw this and attempted to prevent the same consequence. She tried all she could to postpone the divorce, hoping that if she waited long enough, I would accept her back. She even lied to our children, her parents, and many of our friends in an attempt to persuade me to reconcile. I asked her to accept one of my settlement proposals so that we could finish it. The arbiter was annoyed by Sophia's actions. Finally, he simply asked her what she wanted, expecting to utilize it as a starting point for negotiations. Sophia continued to make ludicrous demands, claiming that if she didn't obtain them, she would remain married. One demand was for $2 million each year for 10 years. This was ludicrous given that I earned less than $100,000 per year. The arbitrator informed the judge about Sophia's actions and summoned us to court. Sophia didn't comprehend that the court was the worst choice for her and the best for me. Our older children attended the hearing, but neither had talked to me since Sophia had filled their minds with falsehoods. Sophia delivered her last statement in court, in front of our parents and children. Luke, Sophia's ex-girlfriend, was the first witness my lawyer called. My son was enraged at the end of Luke's description of Sophia's actions behind my back, and my daughter was crying. They stopped believing Sophia's falsehoods. Sophia slumped further into her seat as my second witness was summoned. She attempted to have her lawyer prevent Liam from testifying, but the court persisted. Even I was astonished by Liam's description of Sophia's activities on the island. The court used complete discretion in deciding the divorce terms. State law demanded an equal distribution of assets, but he had considerable discretion in how it was accomplished. I had previously handed Sophia half of our shared expenses and allowed her to take everything she wanted from the home. The court allowed her to retain her vehicle, enabled me to pay off a portion of the mortgage, and set alimony at $1 per week for 2 years. Sophia had already drained the money from our shared accounts, putting her in a difficult situation. We had very little equity in the property since we had taken out a second mortgage to pay for our children's schooling. Sophia also had to pay her own legal bills, and even though the divorce was postponed at her request, her lawyer charged for his time. Sophia ended herself in debt. Our home cost $110,000. We still owed $330,000 on the first mortgage and $40,000 on the second, totaling $40,000 in shared equity. I paid Sophia $220,000. She owing the lawyer $22,000. To assist her, I promised to pay all alimony in one payment. I gave her 5 pristine $20 and 16 quarters before walking away. Almost 6 months after leaving court, I was back on the dock. Olivia and I glanced at the big ship docked there, and she clasped my hand. "Danny," Olivia said. Someone shouted behind us. My daughter Claire ran up and hugged us both. She introduced us to a modest young man, her boyfriend, and they boarded the ship. Both sets of grandparents were already on board. I was still surprised that I stayed close to Sophia's parents, considering that they were my children's grandparents. Henry and his wife waved from the upper deck. I shook my head as Olivia prodded me. "Be nice," she said. Grace appeared with a man who resembled Alex. "You'll have to explain how they ended up together," I told you. Liam and Ryan also came up, each with a lovely college girl. The island experience had had a significant impact on their lives. The botanists came alone. My kid was already on the island. He had leased a chopper and flown there as part of our backup plan. Grace's 3 companions were the only ones who did not accompany us off the island. They thought they had been mistreated and did not want to experience it. Of course, Sophia was not present. It wasn't that she didn't want to come, but life had been difficult for her since our divorce. The majority of the guys she dated were rough, leaving her with bruises and scratches. Furthermore, the money she earned as a receptionist wasn't enough to buy a lovely frock. But the main reason she couldn't go was because she was in prison. She felt deceived after Luke's testimony in court. On the other side, Luke felt abandoned by Sophia following her divorce. So, despite their similarities, they seldom saw one another. A few nights earlier, they wound themselves in the same pub and battled over the same man. The court sentenced them to 1 week in prison for property damage, disturbing the peace, mutual assault, and public drinking. As the huge ship left the pier, a smaller one followed at a distance. I longed to return to our small island. We intended to marry there, and while everyone else slept pleasantly aboard the ship, Olivia and I decided to spend the first night of our honeymoon in our old rustic shelter. The following day, we'd catch a helicopter back to Las Vegas to begin our true honeymoon. $1 for your thoughts, Olivia whispered near me. Oh, I don't have to pay for them anymore, I said. We'll be married in a few hours and we'll be together forever. He'll never do anything to lose you. I love you too much, I added. I could listen to you forever, I murmured, but what I was really thinking about was just before I battled Liam for you on the island. Do you remember what I called this place? She asked you. Yeah, she said, chuckling. You called it Gilligan's Island. No, I said. What did I say? This is the land of Alex, Henry, and me. Maybe the 3 of us should look into buying it. Maybe not, she said. But we lived happily ever after. And that is the conclusion of the narrative. Do you believe Rob made the correct decision? Please let us know in the comments. Do not forget to like and subscribe.